Alex at Christ the Rock Church. I'm going to do a walkthrough of our Ableton rig and how to set up a brand new song. And that should also give all the information you need to adjust anything during the week or whatever. It's going to be a full setup. And we're going to start from scratch, buying a new one, using the templates that are in here and all that stuff. So let's get going. Alright, so obviously the first thing we're going to do is actually not open Ableton. The first thing we're going to do is come to the multi-tracks hard drive. I'm going to go to Masters, which is the yellow tagged folder. And there's one here called New Song Template, and we're going to use that. So the way this is set up is a stationary pad, if you're not familiar with that. What happens is if you open this from Ableton, you'll be editing the template, and we don't want to do that. If you double click this, you'll notice there's some copies up here. So I'm actually going to open V2. I just edited this today. You'll notice when I click it, it makes a new file. Copy. Now this file is actually not going to be important because we're going to do a save as and rename it and save it to a different folder. So you'll notice that folder may be full sometimes. All the copies can be deleted. So here's our template. This is kind of something that I put together mainly so we don't have to worry with the routing. So tab will let you switch windows. So you'll notice all the inputs are already routed to where they need to go to the console at front of house, as well as some buses down here to handle broadcast, and we'll talk about that. Actually, might as well talk about that right now. So if you're not working on the system or you're not plugged into the system, you're going to want to turn on these two buses right here, stereo click and tracks, and they're panned mainly for anyone that wants to do worship in the loft. These two outputs will go to the headphone jack, and this would be the equivalent of the little box that we used to use that would give you one channel in the console of click, and one channel in the console as headphones. And on the laptop, this double serves a purpose as being like a work bus. So if you turn these on, you will be able to hear out of the laptop speakers or headphones if you have headphones plugged in. I'm going to turn them off for right now. I am hooked up to the system. I don't know if it's not loud enough, I will turn those on, but I feel like those would probably blow you out. But bus C here is the broadcast bus. This is going to a stereo pair, which is going up to our production suite. And that's all Dante stuff, so knob C is that. All of that should be pre-routed via the template. You don't have to worry about that. Just so you know how that works, though. So I'm going to tab here. So the first thing we're going to do is buy the song. We don't have this song yet. It's a brand new song. Actually, there might be two of them. I have to go check. So obviously, if we have new songs, the first thing we're going to do is make sure the song isn't in here. So, and there's a couple folders they can be in, so we kind of have to double check. So I'm going to check both of those. We have Battle Belongs and Still. I've already done the first one for the service, and it looks like we already have Still. So we only need to get this one. And I'm just going to double check two other locations. Not in there. And we'll check the raw files just to make sure. Not in there. So the way this drive, there's a lot of extra junk on this drive currently, and hopefully by the time you watch this, you have a chance to clean it off. The system that I set up in the past year or so operates out of approximately 2 or 3 folders. You have the Masters folder, which is where all of our stuff for service should go. And I'm working towards removing the BPM stuff from this outer folder because this is really just the name. So say we're going to do Everlasting God. In here, you'll have session files that have the BPM, right, and then the key. And every time someone calls a new key, I'm making a separate session file. The goal being that when you make a service file, you can just drag in whatever key you want to do, and it should be automatically ready and routed because of the template. So that's kind of how this works. And then if you're making a new song, all the original files live in this raw files folder. You'll notice if I open one of these, it's all WAV files. There's a couple Ableton conversions in there, but for the most part, it should be all WAV files. So we need to obtain this guy, and I'm going to try and get a CCLI here. So multitracks is already up over here. I'm going to go ahead and go looking for it, if it'll play nicely here. So that's a Phil Wickham. There's only one, so it's impossible to get the wrong version. Turn that down a little bit there. So, cool. So we got that guy. That's the song we want. There isn't another one. So, bind multitracks. Just going to confirm the name. We confirmed the sheet that it's Phil Wickham. So, we want to buy Wave multitracks. So we hit buy. This specific machine, the account is already logged in and taken care of. So all we should have to do is check out, and this will show up. There we go. So that is now, we now own this guy. So I'm going to hit download. I personally, at this point, always download the original file. And they have this new thing where if you don't have a cloud subscription that you can only download it for like 2 days. So only download one, and if you need to change keys, we'll go over how to do that, because I don't think we're singing it in D flat. No, we're singing it in C, so we will have to do a song conversion. So we will go ahead and download. You'll see here it tells you we can download it until 2 days from now at this time. So once that's done, we're done in this window. So we can go ahead and open that Ableton template if you hadn't at this point. So if I was starting from scratch, I buy the song and then open the template, right? So we have the template open. And so what you're looking at here, if you're on this screen, is, we'll just talk through this while it downloads. You've got MIDI control up here. Markers are just for the operator to see where stuff happens in the song, and these are not, these can be adjusted, so we'll adjust them once we get the song in. You've got click. Tempo we will have to put in when we know, what the tempo of the song is, and the guide is all up here. These other 4 we don't generally use. Control can auto stop and stuff like that. And then after that, you've got the song group, so we know this is called Battle Belongs. Go ahead and name it. And then all the tracks that we have set up are in here. You probably won't use all of them. When I set this up, I tried to design it towards some of our heavier songs like Echo that has like 8 million keys, synths, and guitars. 9 out of 10 times, you're only going to use a couple. Some of them are kind of EDM-ish, and they use a lot more of those. So they're all there, but you don't have to use them all. So looks like we're done here. So I'm going to go ahead and open downloads and extract this by double-clicking. Got another second here. Cool, now we got a folder. So I'm going to move this folder to that raw files folder. Oh, there we go. And raw files. Boom. So now if we come looking, we should have a folder called Battle Belongs. If we open that, there's a, wow, that's a lot of guitar parts. We're going to have to figure out where to put those because we're not set up to handle that, huh? So at this point, you can either drag and drop from that folder, or you can pull up raw files in the browser here go ahead and close this so I can see. Okay. First thing we should do is make the tempo track. What happens if you don't put the tempo in first is that some of it warps incorrectly or doesn't take the master tempo like it's supposed to, and you'll have tracks that are the wrong tempo. So 81 BPM at 4 and 4/4. So 4/4 is already in here. So we are going to add the 81. That's 81, yeah. Yep. So we're going to come from raw files into this advanced session or advanced arrangement, and we want tempo and 81. I'm going to just drag that right here, and then plus and minus keys to zoom out, minus in this case. Make it the whole length of the thing, and we might have to make that longer. We'll see once we get going here. So now we got our tempo in, so we can go ahead and start bringing things in, and it should be happy. We got our tempo in here, so we can start putting things in, and they'll work correctly now. Alright. So the first thing we got is acoustic guitar. Oh, this being set to leader is telling it that this guy is setting the tempo. So I click this, turns yellow, and you saw this grid kind of change. That's telling it that 81 BPM is the master tempo for every other track in the session. And you'll notice that the tempo bar up here is now grayed out because we have a master tempo in the session. So, without further ado, acoustic, bass, choir. I put choir and vocal effects 1. Those are kind of 4 channels dedicated to, they often send kind of some weird sound effects with the tracks. Part of the game when placing these is making sure you're putting them in places that your sound guy is going to be happy and know what stuff is. Click track we don't need because we have this MIDI click that makes the click for us, so that one actually just stays in the folder. Drums. This part is going to be interesting because I only have 5 guitars, so I'm actually going to pull in the 5 that we have, and I have this kind of cheat way here. If you select the 5 and bring them in, you'll notice it only shows 1 track. Now, once you have all 5 of them here, you'll see that it's trying to put them back to back. If I hold the command key, it's going to move them to the stack, and then I can place all of them just like that. So now with these, I'm going to actually open some of these and see what they're doing. Sometimes I've noticed track guitars are doing maybe functions that aren't so much guitar as much as like a pad or sound effects or almost a synthy thing sometimes. So I try to put those in the channels that, as a sound guy, if I hear it in the mix, that's what I'm going to gravitate to try and adjust it if there's something wrong with it. So I'm going to solo these out and we'll listen one at a time here and see what they're doing. Sorry, I'm clicking on the trackpad again. And I got to turn my work bus on. So that's clearly a guitar. So I'm going to leave that one. That one's pretty clearly a guitar, so we'll come down here to this next one. That's interesting. So you can't hear that right now, but I'm going to turn up the mains. They're actually showing up out here. So for some reason, this bus is not showing a true stereo in the solo. It's canceling it out. Okay, so that's guitar. We'll go ahead here into the third one. Also a guitar. We'll go ahead and come down here to guitar 4. Also a guitar. Got a lot of guitars. So those are actually 5 true guitar lines. So I don't think I've ever gotten a set of tracks with more than 5 guitars. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to check really quick, but I'm going to put the other 2 guitars in these 2 aux channels. That's kind of the whole purpose of leaving some extra channels down there in case something like this happened. I just want to make sure. Actually, that's not even going to be enough. We still got 2 more outside of that. That's going to be, this is quite the excursion. Same trick I used before, holding command. And I actually am going to come in here and change the color of these to match guitars. Don't usually do that. So let's take a look at these guys. This guy might be a saving grace here. Let's see. Okay, I want to. I'm undoing snap to grid so I can click anywhere right now. Plus to zoom in. It's another flat guitar part. Alright, so there's 6 and 7. Still gotta find homes for. I'm gonna go ahead. I don't usually do this, but I'm gonna go ahead and G6, G7. Actually, reason I'm changing it back is what I'm realizing is that if someone says, hey, where's this coming from? And the person looks and says EG6, and the sound guy's going to scratch his head. So I'll stack it with the guitars, and you can see here that we know that those are all guitar tracks, but I'm going to leave them labeled what they show up as in the back. Now we still got to figure out where we're going to get those last 2 guitars from. So I only got 2 keys. So one of them can be keys 3, and one of them can be a synth. So let's do that. So keys 3 and synth 3. Green is my go-to color choice for guitars. And we'll bring in guitar 8 and 9. Oh, crap. There we go. Alright. So, let's just double check and make sure those are also guitar parts. So this right here is the reason listening is kind of important when you set these up. Instead of putting this in keys 3, I'm actually going to move this to pads. Yeah, you can tell it's a guitar, but it's functioning as a pad. And what that's going to let us do is clean up those inputs and gives the sound guy a little bit more of a chance at guessing correctly if corrections are needed. So I'm going to check this one. That's obviously a guitar. So there really are 8 guitars. That is a lot of guitars. Cool. So we managed to move one up here to pad. So let's be on our way here. Guide is going to be dropped into the guide channel, which is one of those ones up at the top. So that one is in the MIDI control section, but it's actually a audio track. And that just lives up there, and that should be all happy now. I am going to expand that because we're going to need that in a little bit. Guide, we got keys 1 and 2. I'm just going to check these really quick, make sure that they're in the right spot. This right here may be another pad. That is a pad. That is a synthy pad, but it is a pad. So, just like that other one, we're going to move this. I'm actually going to put that as pad 1 because that's the more obvious pad. And we'll match the color. Cool. Get that all taken care of. Got a loop. That is usually a percussion loop. So it's up here with the percussion. Just confirm that it's actually doing loop things. Yep. That's a pretty big loop. And we got vocal ooze. That'll go down here in the vocal channel. Some of these we actually don't run, so we'll listen to what they're doing. That's a toughie. There's something, I'm going to turn that off. There's some things that sound kind of funky sometimes. If you hear those and no one's singing it, it looks weird, so we turn those off. Alright, so we got the ooze, we got an organ. That's pretty self-explanatory, we won't have to adjust that one at all. We got piano. We have synth bass, which goes in the S bass. And synth FX. For this one, we're going to drag it in and see what it sounds like before we get to call. So, if you can hear, these are they sound more like percussion hits. So I'm actually going to move those up to a percussion channel. just make more sense there. And we got vocal chops. I'm actually going to put those where the E's are because I try to make the most important stuff first. It's easier on the sound guy. Vocal chop. Okay. I'll turn this back on, turn that one off, and we'll just take a listen. That is a little less weird than the other ones, so I will leave that on. Check this choir real quick. Probably going to turn that one off. So now we got everything dragged in, right? So you'll notice it did make files for the Ableton stuff down below, but we just used the top ones. I'll turn that up because it's not organized. Perfect. So if we take a listen here, at that point, the whole session itself is ready to go audio-wise, right? So double-click stop to go back to the beginning.
1,
and you can hear
2,
through the house the obnoxious
intro,
right?
2, 3, 4.
I'm assuming you can probably hear the house here, right? So I have I turn the routing on in the house, so this all shows up through the house, including the click track, and most of the sound guys will turn that off when they come in. So
Verse 2.
At that point, the only thing we have left to do is we need to correct the markers. So plus to zoom in. So the default here is usually pretty accurate, and then I usually just edit the ones that were here until they get way off, and then there's some shortcuts to make new ones that I'll teach you here. So here's the count in, and then the intro starts right at, so the intro. So we usually, and I need to turn snap to grid back on. We usually start the bar right when they say the word, even though the intro actually starts here, because if we were to put handles in here and use them to navigate Drang Worship with foot pedals or whatever, you would want it to transition and give you a 4 count before that section starts, so you hit it at the right time. So everything technically is labeled a bar earlier than it is. It'll basically be when the guide tells you you're starting that section. So starting here, and then you have intro, and then it counts it out, right?
4.
So then the intro goes.
Verse 1.
So verse 1 is there.
Verse 1.
So I have stopped. For a while, we were adding the 2, 3, 4 to every label. It gets kind of taking up a lot of space from the band perspective. It's general the band knows that where that stuff is happening. So at this point, it's just kind of a speed going through here. I just check all the guide points and line the markers up.
Verse 1.
That's verse 1.
Verse 2.
That's verse 2. So drag Command R to rename. And you could just change the 2, but since it does that, I type pretty fast. So
chorus.
That's a chorus.
Vamp.
That's a I don't usually label the sub designations like that.
Vamp. Verse 3.
It kind of depends, and you'll notice that the grid is not correct for some reason, unless or you can see where the downbeats are these thicker lines. This is happening on a beat 3. So either there's a 2/4, there might be a 2/4 bar in this. Let's listen here.
Vamp.
Ah, there it is, right there.
Vamp.
4, 1,
Vamp.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Verse 3.
2, 3. Yeah, so we can actually account for that. We're gonna try calling this a 2/4 bar. That should compensate. Maybe. Oh, we have to change it back. So we just right click, right? Insert time signature, type it in, just like that, and we're back on a downbeat. So we also have to compensate the click. And the way we do that is we come into this guy, click, and 2/4, just like that.
Vamp. Verse 3.
So the click is just this click is being here. So
Verse 3.
So this is a downbeat, which means that happens right
Verse 3.
there. Yeah, so now if we drag this back, it should.
Verse 3.
So whole thing now. So we got the 2/4 here to correct the grid. We got the click part here to do the actual click.
Vamp. Verse 3.
2, 3, 4. So here we are.
Verse 3.
That's verse 3.
Verse 4.
Got a lot of verses on this one. So here's an example of where I start not using the ones there anymore. Highlight the area. Command-Shift-M makes a new MIDI clip. Command-R, rename. So I can do all of that with key commands and verse 4 without touching the mouse. Okay, I guess that's probably a chorus.
Chorus.
Yep. Come down here.
Vamp.
So this might be another one of those 2/4 things.
Vamp. Bridge. Breakdown.
So bridge.
Vamp.
4, 1, 2.
Grid.
Right there, got another one of those 2/4 bar things happening. So 4, 4, 4, and we'll do the same thing here. Once you do it once, the thing's already open. It becomes a lot easier. Cut that and do that.
Vamp. Bridge. Breakdown.
I'm listening to make sure that that time signature actually makes sense. Sounds like it's correct.
Bridge. Drums in. Bridge.
So I am putting bridge in here multiple times every time that she says it, just because if we were to put handles on this, same idea as earlier, if you only want to repeat the third bridge, it becomes a lot easier to figure out where that is if they're all labeled.
Build.
I do not follow those band cues. Those are for the band, so I will leave that.
Vamp. Chorus.
So there we go. They did the vamp, and it was actually the full 4/4 figure, so we don't have to worry about it. We'll take that. It's not really down chorus.
Chorus. All in. Tap.
tag. Tag I don't usually do every time she says it's just the first one.
Outro.
Uh-oh, that tag had a weird time.
Tag. Tag. Outro.
Huh.
Tag. Outro.
So that's a little less obvious musically, but the click does not tend to lie. So I'm gonna do this. Same thing. Let's just, sometimes we have to correct these with band people, just, things that people know that I don't have access to necessarily.
Outro.
Oh, I forgot to. Oh wait, that sounded right. Is that right?
Outro.
Oh no, we want that. We want this right there.
Outro.
Oh my gosh. So this green arrow, if you click twice, it'll repeat. That's why I keep stopping it.
Outro. Ending.
There you go. If this is working correctly, this is will stop the playhead. So if there's, a message or someone talking afterwards, you don't accidentally start playing another song. And there we go. The only other thing I usually do is I change this to black, and I apologize that the template is not that way. One of these days I'll remember to save that in. So I just I click the end one, shift click the first one, right click, and black. I think that just makes it easier to read and makes that track with the markers stand out from the rest of them. Collapse that back down. I leave this one uncollapsed because when you import it to the next session, which we'll do in a second, it is weird. So that's how you make a song, and we need to save. So we're still, all this work, and we are working in the template that we made. Now it will save there. We are going to do a save live set as. So we will put it in the masters folder, call it battle belongs. And you'll notice what it does is it actually makes the overall folder, and then it makes a session file. Now, this is where I have to look this up again. We're in the key of D flat right now. And we're doing it in C this week. So I'm going to actually just save it again right now. Once it has a folder to live in, see here, we can save this as 81 beats per minute, A flat. Right? Just gonna double check. D flat. See, that's talking and paying attention are not good for me apparently. D flat, save. Now you'll notice it has that in the title, and if I bring that, I won't actually save again, but now there's the original file and then this one. So I often will just delete that because these are the same. So we're in D flat. So we want to get to C, real easy transposition down a step, or down a half step, right? Or, sorry, one semitone is the language that Ableton uses. So I'm going to select the bottom vocal track here, and I'm going to shift and click up to keys 2 or pad 1, which in this case is the last track that is melodic. We don't want to warp any of our percussion tracks, they will sound very weird. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn warp on. And we're going to leave them on follower, which means that they're still locking their tempo off of that tempo track, right? 81 BPM. We're going to change the algorithm that is for the warp uses, and what this is when it warps, what it's doing to try and preserve If you think of the Alvin and the Chipmunk pop song remixes, there's an algorithm. If you stretch an audio track, by default the vocal formants and stuff will change and sound either like that or like a demon. And so Ableton has some algorithms built in that it tries its best to preserve those important qualities, and so you have to tell it which one. I almost always use Complex Pro. So I set that to Pro. We're going to shift it down a step to C, and now we'll fire it up here.
Verse 2.
Here's where we were originally. I'm going to turn the click off for a second. So here's D flat, right? And there's C. So that's C.
Chorus.
And that's all we got to do for that. So now, before we do anything, do not Command S or you'll save over your D flat. We're going to do another save as, and we'll just change D flat to C. And now we're ready for that. Just going to collapse everything and save it. And now we are done with that song.